The little girl stood in the middle of the hotel lobby, clutching her father's old suitcase with both hands, while the receptionist looked at them as if they were something that had accidentally wandered in from the street. "Sir, I'm sorry, but guests like you cannot stay here." The words were spoken loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. The little girl's eyes dropped to the marble floor. Her father froze. He had spent years building this hotel from nothing. He had signed every major contract, paid every employee, and personally designed the room where his daughter had once taken her first steps. Yet standing there in a faded jacket with his exhausted 7-year-old daughter beside him, he was being told that he didn't belong. What happened next would change the lives of everyone behind that reception desk. Before we begin, if you believe people should be judged by their hearts instead of their clothes, take a moment to like this story, share it with someone who needs a reminder about kindness, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories. It was nearly 9 o'clock on a cold Friday evening when Daniel Carter pushed open the heavy glass doors of the Grand Meridian Hotel. He didn't look like the owner. That was exactly how he wanted it. Daniel was 38 years old, a single father, and the founder of one of the most successful boutique hotel chains in the country. The Grand Meridian was his pride and joy, the flagship property that had taken him nearly 15 years to build. But tonight, nobody at the hotel knew who he was. Daniel had deliberately kept his arrival secret. For months, he had heard complaints about how some employees treated ordinary guests. Customers had described arrogant receptionists, hidden fees, dismissive managers, and staff who seemed to believe that expensive clothes determined a person's value. Daniel could have investigated through reports. Instead, he decided to see it for himself. And he wasn't alone. His 7-year-old daughter, Lily, walked beside him. Lily had soft brown hair tied into 2 uneven ponytails and carried a tiny purple backpack decorated with stars. She was tired after a long day of traveling, but she had been excited about staying in a luxury hotel for the first time. "Daddy," she whispered as they entered, "does our room have a swimming pool?" Daniel smiled. "Maybe not inside the room." Lily giggled. "Then maybe a giant bathtub." "We'll see." Daniel looked down at her and felt something tighten in his chest. For the past few months, life had been difficult. Daniel's wife, Emma, had died 3 years earlier after a sudden illness. Since then, he had tried to become everything Lily needed: father, mother, teacher, cook, driver, protector, and sometimes simply the person who sat beside her bed when she missed her mother. His business had grown enormously during those years, but Daniel had learned something painful. Money could buy a beautiful house. It could buy expensive cars. It could buy hotel rooms with views over entire cities. But it couldn't buy back the sound of the woman you loved laughing in the kitchen. That was why Lily came first. Always. And tonight, after a difficult business trip, Daniel had decided to surprise her with one night at the Grand Meridian before they returned home. He approached the reception desk. A young receptionist named Chloe looked up from her computer. She glanced at Daniel, then at Lily, then at their worn suitcase. Her expression changed. "Can I help you?" Daniel gave her a polite smile. "Yes, we need a room for tonight." Chloe's fingers stopped moving. "Do you have a reservation?" "No." "Then I'm afraid we're fully booked." Daniel looked around the lobby. There were several empty seats. The hotel appeared unusually quiet. "I understand," he said. "Could you check again? Even a standard room would be fine." Chloe sighed. "Sir, I already told you we're fully booked." Daniel remained calm. "My daughter has been traveling all day. We don't need anything special." Lily looked up at Chloe. "Do you have a room with a bathtub?" Daniel gently touched her shoulder. "Lily, what?" she asked innocently. Chloe's eyes moved over Lily's backpack and worn sneakers. Then she leaned slightly toward Daniel. "Sir, this is a luxury property." Daniel stared at her. "I know. Then you should understand that we have certain standards." The words hit harder than Daniel expected. He glanced toward Lily. She didn't understand what Chloe meant. But Daniel did. "Are you saying we don't meet your standards?" Chloe's face tightened. "I'm saying that without a reservation, we can't accommodate everyone who walks in." Daniel nodded slowly. "That's fair." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. "I can pay the full rate." Chloe glanced at the wallet. Then at Daniel's clothes. His jacket was old. His shoes had visible scratches. He had intentionally avoided wearing his expensive watch. He looked like an exhausted working father. Not a billionaire hotel owner. Chloe lowered her voice. Sir, there are other hotels nearby that may be more suitable. Daniel stared at her. My daughter is tired. We've already driven for hours. I'm sorry. No, you're not. Chloe's eyebrows rose. Daniel immediately softened his voice. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just need a room. Lily suddenly tugged at his sleeve. Daddy, can we go somewhere else? Daniel looked down. Her excitement had disappeared. That hurt more than Chloe's attitude. He knelt beside Lily. Hey, look at me. Lily slowly raised her eyes. We're okay. But I wanted to see the hotel. Daniel smiled. I know. Did I do something wrong? Daniel's heart broke. No, absolutely not. He stood. Then something happened that made the entire lobby fall silent. A man in a black suit stepped out from the manager's office. He was the hotel's general manager, Victor Harris. Victor recognized Daniel immediately. His eyes widened. But before he could say anything, Daniel raised one finger. Don't. Victor stopped. Daniel wanted to see what would happen. Victor looked at Chloe, then at Daniel, then at Lily. And suddenly, Daniel understood something. Victor knew exactly who he was. But Chloe apparently didn't. Victor walked toward the desk. What's going on? Chloe immediately straightened. This gentleman is asking for a room without a reservation. I explained that we're fully booked. Victor glanced at Daniel. Daniel gave him another warning look. Victor swallowed. Yes, he said carefully. I see. Daniel expected him to tell Chloe the truth. Instead, Victor remained silent. Chloe continued. I also explained that we can't just allow walk-ins to stay here. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Is that the official policy? Victor hesitated. Yes. Daniel nodded. Interesting. Lily looked at the giant chandelier above them. Daddy, that light is pretty. Daniel smiled sadly. Yeah, sweetheart. It is. Then Lily whispered something that Daniel would never forget. Maybe rich people don't like kids like us. Daniel's face changed instantly. He turned toward Chloe. What did you just hear her say? Chloe looked uncomfortable. I didn't say anything to her. You didn't have to. Daniel's voice remained quiet. That child just decided she doesn't belong here because of the way you treated us. Chloe rolled her eyes. Sir, you're making this much more dramatic than it needs to be. Victor looked nervous. Daniel stared at him. Do you agree with her? Victor opened his mouth. Nothing came out. That silence told Daniel everything. He reached down and took Lily's hand. Come on. They began walking toward the doors. Then Chloe said something that made Daniel stop. Honestly, this is probably for the best. We have standards to maintain. Daniel slowly turned around. The entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. Standards. Yes. Daniel looked around. At the marble floors. At the gold decorations. At the enormous floral arrangement that cost more than some families earned in months. Then he looked at Lily. His daughter was staring at the floor. Daniel's expression became strangely calm. He walked back toward the desk. Chloe, what's your full name? She frowned. Why? Your full name. Chloe Bennett. Daniel nodded. Thank you. Chloe looked at Victor. Victor had gone pale. Daniel turned toward him. And you? Victor swallowed. Daniel. Daniel's eyes hardened. You knew. Victor looked down. Lily looked between them. Knew what, Daddy? Daniel didn't answer. Victor finally whispered, Mr. Carter, please. Lily's eyes widened. Mr. Carter. Daniel sighed. He had wanted to keep his identity hidden. But the moment had passed. Daniel took out his phone. Victor, how many guests were turned away this week? Victor didn't respond. How many? Sir, how many? Victor lowered his head. 23. Daniel's jaw tightened. 23. Victor nodded. Complaints. Some. How many were investigated? Victor remained silent. Daniel understood. None. Chloe suddenly looked confused. Why are you asking him these questions? Daniel turned toward her. Because I own this hotel. The lobby went completely silent. Chloe stared at him. What? Daniel held her gaze. I own this hotel. Her face drained of color. Victor immediately stepped forward. Mr. Carter, I was going to explain. Daniel raised his hand. No. Victor stopped. Daniel looked at Chloe. The same woman who had just told him to find a more suitable hotel was now staring at the owner. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. I didn't know. Daniel nodded. That is the problem. Chloe's hands began trembling. "Sir, I apologize. You thought I couldn't afford a room. No, you thought my daughter and I didn't belong here. I didn't mean, you said we didn't meet your standards." Chloe's eyes filled with fear. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult her. That made the moment even more uncomfortable. He simply said, "You weren't supposed to know who I was." Chloe stared at him. Daniel continued, "That's why I came here tonight dressed like this." He pointed toward his jacket. "I wanted to know how my staff treated people when they thought I wasn't watching." Victor closed his eyes. Daniel looked around the lobby. There are thousands of hotels in this country. The Grand Meridian was supposed to be different. Lily quietly moved closer to her father. Daniel noticed. His anger disappeared for a moment. He crouched beside her. "I'm sorry." Lily shook her head. "For what?" "For bringing you into this." She hugged him. Daniel closed his eyes. Then he stood again. Victor approached carefully. "Sir, I can fix this." Daniel looked at him. "No, Victor. You had months to fix it." Victor's face fell. Daniel turned to Chloe. "You're fired." Chloe froze. "What? You heard me. Please, sir. I need this job." Daniel paused. For the first time, he saw genuine fear in her eyes. And instead of feeling satisfied, he felt something else. Sadness. Because firing someone was easy. Understanding why they behaved that way was harder. Daniel looked at Victor. "Call HR." Victor nodded immediately. Daniel then looked at the other employees standing nearby. "Everyone stay where you are." No one moved. Daniel placed his phone on the reception desk. "I want every complaint from the last 6 months." Victor's face became tense. 6 months. Every complaint. Daniel looked at Lily. She was still holding his hand. Then he said something that made everyone in the lobby realize this wasn't simply about Chloe. This isn't about one receptionist. Daniel's voice echoed through the lobby. It's about a culture. He looked toward Victor. "And if my daughter had to learn tonight that this hotel decides who deserves respect based on their clothes, then I have failed as its owner." Lily suddenly tugged his hand. "Daddy." Daniel looked down. "What is it? Can we still stay?" Daniel blinked. "Here." She nodded. "I still want to see the bathtub." For the first time that night, Daniel laughed. A small, tired laugh. "Okay, sweetheart." He looked at Victor. "Find us a room." Victor immediately reached for the phone. Daniel stopped him. "Wait." Victor turned. Daniel looked toward Chloe. She was standing behind the desk, crying silently. Daniel's expression softened. "Before you leave, Chloe, answer one question." She looked at him. "What?" "If you had known I owned this hotel when I walked through those doors, would you have treated me differently?" Chloe couldn't answer. Daniel nodded. "That is exactly why I didn't tell you." He took Lily's hand. They began walking toward the elevators. But Daniel didn't know that the worst part of the night hadn't happened yet. Because when the elevator doors opened, a young hotel employee came running across the lobby. She was holding a thick folder against her chest. "Mr. Carter." Daniel turned. The woman stopped in front of him, breathless. "I'm sorry, but you need to see this before you go upstairs." Daniel frowned. "What is it?" She looked nervously toward Victor. Then toward Chloe. Finally, she whispered, "It's the list of guests who were turned away." Daniel took the folder. He opened it. His eyes moved down the first page. Then the second. Then the third. But suddenly, his expression changed. One name made his blood run cold. Daniel looked up. "Who turned this guest away?" Nobody answered. He looked at Victor. "Who?" Victor's face went white. Daniel held up the page. The guest had arrived 3 weeks earlier with a little boy. A little boy who had been wearing the same kind of worn shoes Lily wore tonight. And according to the complaint, the child had been crying because the hotel receptionist told his father they were not the kind of guests this property wanted. Daniel's hand tightened around the paper. Then he looked at Lily. She was watching him. And for the first time that evening, Daniel realized something far bigger than a rude receptionist was happening inside his hotel. Someone had been teaching ordinary families that they weren't worthy of kindness. And Daniel was determined to find out exactly who.